really need to put our emphasis in the countries where it is practiced. In the United States, it will come slowly. We can start with the post-graduation level because we take these people and then you can teach them that level. Sorry.
No, that's a good point. And listen, Blake, you want to share something on this risk management aspect?
Yeah, I was going to address the challenge that you've addressed and that you also addressed is that there's a resistance within large institutions to set up Islamic windows or Islamic asset management services because of the risk management issues where the compliance department and the accounting department will want to have every issue resolved in advance. And when you're thinking about how fintech is approaching the problem, it comes at it with a totally different cultural perspective. It says, let's develop the minimum viable product. Let's go out and see if there's a market for it. And if there's a market for it, then we'll expand it based on what the consumers are looking for. I think that's going to be particularly in a bank-centric industry like Islamic finance, that's going to be a really big area of challenge for other parts of Islamic finance to develop.
Yeah, from my personal standpoint, I think this risk management is really going to be a big thing for Islamic finance, especially when it gets into the whole area of this fintech solutions and products and other services. You know, when we start to automate more and more of the business model, the only thing that really remains that needs to be managed is really the command and control of the operations. And if you look at this, most banks and the management is largely focused on managing the asset liability, managing the book, managing the liquidity, managing the income, trying to understand where all these things actually come from. So when we are looking at trying to deal with a lot of these things, one of the complications, of course, is the convoluted way that we are using data warehouse and all those kind of stuff to draw data for analysis purposes. And some of the things which this Enrico and myself have been doing some work on is in using smart contracts for this business intelligence and data analytics. And we essentially basically try to introduce a whole new paradigm to basically help us deal with some of the challenges that we currently face with data reconciliation issue, data scrubbing, data reconciliation, and a lot of other issues which are faced by financial institutions and banks. And it allows us to essentially boil down a lot of the information into specific cash flows that can be used for analytics by event level. But we don't have time to kind of go into those details here. But I do really like to kind of get the panel maybe talk a little bit more about where do you see the Islamic finance going from a fintech angle in some are you already seeing a lot of exact actual products being thrown out there? And what are those products and where do you see it going in the future?
Absolutely. So I'm going to talk globally. So I'm going to mention examples in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in the United States of actual startups that are working today on a lot of products related to fintech and Islamic finance. And it's pretty exciting. So I'll start with the Middle East. There is in North Africa, there is a concept called Jam'iyya. And Jam'iyya is a concept that is embedded in the culture where if someone wants money because his daughter is getting married, then they would go to their neighbors and they would say, okay, over the next 12 months, we're 12 members. I'm going to have a $500 this month, and I'm going to be the first guy to be paid. And then there is a second, third, and fourth. It's kind of like takaful. No interest gained, and it's just collection of people together. So people now are putting together an application where using Facebook, you're able to communicate with your friends, they can become members, and you can do several takaful jamaiyas as well. It's spreading really fast. It's kind of a peer-to-peer lending with no interest involved, and as you do it with your friends. There's another example about charity contribution and purification. Many people here, they understand the term purification, which is basically purifying the non-permissible income that happens with your investment. If I invest in alcohol, for example, or I invest in a company that has very little alcohol revenue, I need to purify that. The number is shocking. I mean, when you look at the global equities and from an Islamic finance standpoint, you're talking about billions of dollars that being purified. We at Dear Ratings, we get to see these numbers because we have a lot of AUMs using us and doing the purification. So there were applications have emerged where should this money go, which charities. Then there is an application in progress today that's going to be released where you're able to purify them, pick the charity where you donate. The money is going to be a major impact investing. I've seen the panel for the EPF, which was amazing and a big success. And that is a great when they look at the purification, the impact they can do to society with the purification money is also a great example. You have a lot of examples on crowdfunding and as well in terms of Murabaha transaction. If anybody's familiar with the Ethereum and the DAO is a fund that was created based on Ethereum. In 3 weeks, they've raised $150 million. Unfortunately, they got hacked from a security standpoint, so it had some issues. But the whole idea, if you use the blockchain technology like Ethereum as my base, I can do any Murabaha transaction anywhere in the world. No currency exposure, no regulation, no bank, and it can be done on the exchange as well. So this is going to be a major step in the Islamic finance world. There is also Tilt, which is a US-based application. Just to give an example, in the US, and Tilt helps you to raise money for any cause. So again, friends and members and people are able to donate $25, $10, and I really think that that is the future, and this is how fintech is going to help Islamic finance away from regulations, cross borders, which is kind of really a critical barrier for Islamic finance industry to grow.
Just adding a point to what Muhammad Dunya said, I just want to bring the academic angle of it. So fintech is a technology, but somebody has to teach them, right? So actually, if you are familiar with the US system, US government is putting emphasis on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and management, because this is where we are lagging behind. So I would say that when the education party comes in, the curriculum and teaching and providing degree, the leaders, the big, let's say top 20 school in the United States, you know, they have this program. Let's say I enter a program, I want to do a sort of in Islamic finance or technology management, something like that. So in those, the starting point would be, I mean, if you can sell, and actually it's a demand driven, and the student wants that I want to have 3 different classes, and the big schools, they have the money and budget and all these things, they can easily hire, let's say Muhammad Dunya, they come and teach a class for a semester, so they can develop these things. So if you can sell this idea, of course it has to be demand driven, and there are Muslim students and ethical, those who want to do this, regardless of the religion, those who like the ethical principle, and they want to do this because there's a demand. Right now, one study shows that there are about 50,000, workers they need for the Islamic finance industry, the lack, the supply and demand for talent. So if we can sell, I mean, these top schools, they will be leader, and the other schools can follow. Second point, if Harvard want to do a study, let's say on Islamic finance in the United States, and if Harvard professor approaches any industry, they are willing to give money, not from the University of New Orleans, by the way. But I'm talking about, we have to start from the top, and you have to sell the idea. It's an ethical principle on the basis of Abrahamic faith. It's a good one. So that's the way the curriculum development part is imparting education part of these things. But it has to start with the STEM education. I need to know computer science. I need to know math. And I can have 3 or 4 classes within this university, and then I can call this a program. So curriculum develops that way. That's the way the demand for this Islamic finance education at the university level in the United States will grow. So from there, you know, you're playing a great tune. Actually, I'm very impressed, really. I mean, coming here, I meet so many people you're talking about, and one of the best, this interactive session I really like. So that's the way you are putting the awareness. I mean, the countries like Malaysia has a government policy. They can really look, I mean, approach the big universities and they can start this kind of thing. Even they can say, okay, we'll send Northia. I know you have taught one class in Drake University. I will come and teach one class. And those kind of thing you can start. Somebody has to push this.
Yeah, I'd add to that that's really important. And from my conversations with people from the demographic group who are in college, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and not just for Islamic finance as a Sharia compliant proposition. People of that age group have grown up with Islamic finance being a concept that's out there and a product that's available. That's sort of taken as a given at this point. There's a lot more interest in looking at beyond just the compliance mentality of how you think about environmental ethics and how Islam informs those. And there's a lot of overlap in that area with other ethical investors. And there hasn't been as much communication between Islamic and traditional responsible investment around issues like environmental stewardship. And it's an area where markets, particularly where like the US, which is relatively small Muslim market, where it can find the scale it needs to grow from offering a wider ethical proposition beyond just something that's Sharia compliant.
Yeah, I do think that this, from a standpoint of market, I know the US probably not tested yet. It currently looks very small. But the sense is that the potential is great and very, very big. I agree with Professor Kabir about the need to kind of do this bottom-up talent development, because it is important that people understand the basic tenets of Islamic finance and what it's all about, why it's there, and all that. Because without that, it's going to be difficult. And the question is, from a standpoint of talent development, what are you seeing today? I think the quotation is that we hear that there are a lot of schools that are basically working on curriculum to develop curriculum to cover Islamic finance, education, and different products and services, and all aspects of that. I don't know whether you even cover all aspects at this point in time. So what are you seeing right now?
Actually, let me just tell you 101 of education system in this country. The curriculum is always a faculty and student-driven process. The administration from the top in this country cannot do that. Now, when you look at, there are two segments, universities, there are top universities, there are tons of monies. So like, for example, let me give you a personal experience. My son is at a junior at Harvard. He's studying economics and computer science. And he got a internship next summer for Bain and Company. And he was telling me that, Dad, I'm going to work in the private equity. So wonderful. So he wants to know about Islamic finance. So now it was telling me that I probably will ask that we should have an Islamic finance course. So I told him in conflict of interest, I cannot teach it. So what I'm saying that they can develop. So when Harvard, one student tells that I need a class, they have to offer the class somewhere. So this demand is coming, not from my son, those who believe, and he has a lot of friends still. Actually, they have all needs 10, 15 people. And they will look for someone like Abdul Qadir Thomas or somebody who's doing this, and they can hire him, come and teach a class. So that's the way the starting point would be. Secondly, I would also reach out to industry players here. This Harvard MBA program, Wharton, if you can tell them, look, I want to give a lecture in your class one day about it, they will love to do that. And that's the way you create a demand for it too, on the high end of the market. So we have to do this advocacy group. From your standpoint, it is also good for a business because you're creating talent, but also creating demand too. When they realize that the ethical principle of this thing, this is everybody is clamoring for really. This entire election and all these things. By the way, Donald Trump, you can also sell him Islamic finance. He's a businessman. If when he sees that it gives the same rate of return, but at the same time it's ethical, he's going to buy it.
Yeah, just in terms of this, when we talk about the talent development, earlier we kind of touched on the fact that it actually covers end to end. So we have things like accounting, legal compliance, enforcement of contracts, this technology, this and support requirements and reporting requirements, regulation. So, and a lot of these elements are not typically taught in schools, in most schools. I want to get your thoughts from your experience in terms of from an Islamic finance perspective. I mean, they learn the generic things. So, is that something that is being done here in the U.S. to address that? The requirements?
Not really. Let me tell you. I mean, we do all academic program is more theory rather than practice. Let me give you a couple of examples. One is David Laundry. He is the owner of Islamic Bank. So he has found the area that is a Muslim community, there is a demand for it, and he did not go to any school. He learned it himself, the technique and all this. So that's one market. Another market is Mike McMillan, friend of mine, he is a doctor, he is a lawyer, and he makes his living doing Islamic finance. So those kind of thing is always you learn on the job training. But the question is, all the programs that we see, like a Middle Eastern Studies program or Harvard Legal Studies program, they really look at this sort of structuring deal, how to drafting, though they really do not go to these basic fundamentals that we need to learn. When you talk about fintech, of course, it is the technology you're talking about, but you need to know really the basic fundamentals. And that's where the lack is really, unfortunately. We are not really. Everything else, like you, Steve, I mean, you didn't have to go to school to learn Islamic finance. We can pick up muamalat very quickly, but the other part, really, we have to, the lower level, to create this labor force for the future.
Yeah, no, I have a friend, this Dao Abdullah. I think some of you know him, David Vickery, in Malaysia. He is he runs INSEF, and this I thought that program was quite interesting, and this they kind of provide a platform to kind of educate a lot of us people from ground up, covering all the different foundations of ethical financing and Islamic financing. And that is something which I think this is a good piece of work. And I wish Dao is here. This I can ask him directly, but he's not. But it will be great to kind of see that kind of work also replicated out here in the U.S. Is anyone seeing that kind of work done here?
Yeah, I mean, there are, as you mentioned, Professor. So I've seen programs in Stanford and in Berkeley, primarily to PhD students on the legal framework for PE, private equity, as you mentioned. I sometimes get invited. For some reason, I'm an engineer background, and to talk about the structures and the different structures and why and how, skills that I've learned. And I think the real issue, because Islamic finance, you find it in schools in Malaysia, in Azhar University in Egypt, in Imam University in Saudi Arabia. One of the big challenges that I faced when I started Idea Ratings is I literally had to go to these schools and get the papers that were really written in Arabic. Like we would still debate what are the reasons behind these fatwas. I will go to the scholar who came up originally with the fatwa and then ask him, how did you conclude that the debt over market cap should be less than 33%? Where is this in the text? And then I'm able to get the whole background. Why is it 5%? How did you come up with the 5%? And absolutely not a lot of people understand these concepts, limit us. And I go to a lot of places where the information is not solid and the fundamentals are not there. So I'm in absolute agreement with you. Now, on the demand side, I just want to share with the group here that we have a retail product that is being used by several thousands of people worldwide in the US, and it's a Sharia compliant product. Just to figure out if Apple is Sharia compliant or not, we have 15,000 users, and every single day I get messages from these users asking me for products. What kind of products can we invest in? So Dino, my friend who was on the panel here, he left, and Sandeep and all the guys, even IV Cap as well. I think you guys have exceptional products. We need to figure out a way to redistribute these products in the US. There will be major demands for them. I have the pulse of the market. As I said, there's a major demand. I was also talking to some of the bankers here, and I told them, why don't you give us access to all the financing you do? So there is a lot of crowdfunding that can be done. You don't need to go to an institution to raise the money. Definitely, most of these guys are high net worth individuals who would like to invest, because from a concept standpoint in Islamic finance, you pay 2.5% on the cash you have every year as zakat. So if you have $100,000 over 10 years, you lose 25% of them. So you really have to invest. You don't have an option.